It's the Pikey Loughz Show, Talking Taipans. With Chris Pike and Alex Loughton come to you with everything that is 100% Taipans. Let's go. It's Talkin Taipans.
This episode of the Pikey Loughz Show proudly brought to you by Stattons Plumbing Company. Plumbers who care.
Hello and welcome to the second episode of the Pikey Loughz Show. That's right, we've made it to episode 2.
We made it to
Talking Taipans,
episode 2, mate.
I knew you were jumping, Loughz.
I
had my little spiel ready. I was going to try to at least get my name in before you jumped in. So I'm Chris Pike, and now we go to Alex Loughton.
No, I'm all ears. Pikey, what have you got for me?
I just wanted to get my name out there. I'm Chris Pike, but now let's go to the man that you want to listen to, Alex Loughton. Quite the weekend for the Taipans, but Loughz, take it away.
Mate, it's obviously there's 2 L's in the bank from this weekend, but I think we can really break down some positives that I saw that the good people of Cairns will not have picked up on. So look, the Brisbane game, obviously, the net result was down 16, obviously up by 4 at half time, and then I guess that bit of a third quarter fade happened. Now that people will call it a fade, and it was, but look, in hoops, and probably a metaphor for life, there's peaks and valleys, there's momentum swings in every single game. That bit you can't actually help. It's actually I can guarantee there'll be momentum swings in every game. I guess the secret of the good teams, or the ones that are able to get over the line, is how quickly can you turn that faucet off and stop the bleeding, so to speak. So in the Brisbane game, now I don't think they were able to recover from the run that Brisbane made in that third quarter, and it sort of, that buffer remained there until the end of the game. Now with the Wollongong game, in terms of that same momentum swing that seemed larger than the normal sort of peaks and valleys in the game, they fought back and got the lead, and were in a position to win the game. And I think it's no surprise with DJ back, Pikey, the difference that made to the mindset going into that fourth quarter. I guess maybe your thoughts, first of all, on the third quarter kind of fade out a bit, but also how it changed for you for that game too in Wollongong.
Absolutely. The things that stood out to me in that Brisbane game was that they were trying hard, but they just kept turning the ball over. If you have a look, and you have 22 turnovers for the game, a lot of those, unfortunately, were from Scotty Machado and even Cam Oliver. I think they had 13 between them out of the 22, and also some lack of discipline. Unfortunately, Nate Jarway gets a tech foul at the wrong time. He was in foul trouble for a lot of that game. Just anytime they tried to get back into the game, it seemed like they would either turn the ball over or just make a bad mistake. It just looked like they could get nothing going. But like you said, it was a different story on Monday, and I can't help but think that the presence of DJ Newell was the biggest difference from the performance on Friday to the showing on Monday.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess it was a surprise too that he was sitting out there for that Brisbane game. We saw him kind of in the orange T-shirt and a look of a little bit forlorn on the end of the bench there. But maybe, the Taipans aren't going to rush him into something if he's not ready. There's a whole season ahead of him and ahead of them. So, it was probably a wise decision to just maybe 100% sure that he's good to go. And boy, did he perform in that Wollongong game. I will say this, in the number of turnovers, in a slow-paced game, a conservative style or walk it up the floor type of style, you'd probably set the benchmark at 11 turnovers to be acceptable. With a fast-paced run-and-gun game, you're probably going to extend that quota to about, 15 turnovers is probably going to be their team goal to stay at 15 or below. So 22 turnovers, like you said, is not going to get it done, and they won't be happy with that. And I guess I hear sort of Coach Kelly say, look, we didn't make the most most of our opportunities. Well, with 7 extra possessions that have gone begging, I guess you're going to lose out on shooting at about 45%. You're going to lose about sort of three goals out of those 7 possessions, which is 6 points.
Yep.
Now, that might not make a difference in the Brisbane game, but in terms of discipline and not getting those turnovers kind of thing and sticking to maybe that 15 turnover limit, it's going to be a different story in the Wollongong game. So how many turnovers in the Wollongong game did you count?
Probably still too many. You had 19, but
was it 19?
But they weren't.
19. So let's say
they weren't. Didn't feel as damaging. They felt like They felt like they're under a lot better control. And Scotty Machado was a lot better. He only had one. Sorry, he still had 4, but then Cam Oliver played under a lot better control. He only had 1, and he looked like he was under a lot better control. Maybe that's because he's playing his 3rd game in the NBL and he's starting to get a feel for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, let's say it was 15 turnovers. So there was 4 over the quarter. You convert half of those missed possessions, that missed opportunities. There's 4 points. That's definitely the game done down there. Like that's a win by 3 points. Yep. So I mean, the turnovers is probably one thing. Let's talk about Scotty Machado. That game in Wollongong was really. I was really impressed. Like you just saw some of the plays that he made late in the game. I'm just thinking of that one where he came down. He spun. He did a spin move and then kind of dropped it off to I want to say Noy or Oliver for the finish. But just his control of the ball. Look, some of the possessions did get a little bit out of hand, but the one time I'm picturing Aaron Brooks went for a steal, put his hand in the cookie jar. Scotty just discarded him in the backcourt, and then Aaron Brooks tried to get in front, and Scott was just able to hold him on his hip, on his back, and he just was able to drive in and make the right play. So I mean, this guy is legit. Yep. Ball general, a floor general, and he's certainly got the goods against. I actually rate Aaron Brooks. I think he's really helped Wollongong. He's really played a man's game, but I thought that was a great contest between those two. But I'm just really happy to see how Scotty is sort of fitting in well. He's got to have the ball in his hands a lot, so that and you've got to, with a fast-paced team, you've got to kind of take your opportunities. So there was a few possessions obviously where it went out of control a little bit, but I'm not worried about that at all. I think there was some other sort of plays. You spoke about Nate Jowers' discipline, thinking that he got that tech foul in the Brisbane game. Now, here's one thing that I did see. So that was a tech foul, and I think Tony Caldwell picked up on that one. Maybe Nate was unhappy with the foul, but that put him on his 3rd, and then that put him on the bench. So Mike Kelly will be saying, Nate, you're now in a position of leadership. I'm definitely going to be hard on you to say, that just can't happen, because that cost not only the Taipans a possession, but it also means you picked up your 3rd and you got to sit on the bench. So let's stamp that out. We'll nip it in the bud right now, kind of thing, and just have that in your mindset. You're a leader now. We need these disciplined plays all the way down the stretch, because we just don't have room for error here.
You make a good point in terms of leadership. We'll hear from Mike Kelly later in the show, and he talks about the fact that you're gone now, and you were the captain, but also Lucas Walker was the vice captain. You were the two vocal leaders of that team and the 2 most experienced players, and Mike touches on this. Nate he can be a vocal player in terms of yelling and making noise, but he's not a natural captain. But he should be. I'm not saying that they've made the wrong decision. They've got the right 2 guys as co-captain, but they're not natural vocal leaders. If you were still captain this year, would have you put your arm around Nate after he got that tech foul? How would have you handled it as captain?
Well, I think normally he was sort of. I would obviously say, look, Nate, we can't have that. That would have cost us, that possession. And he might have just sort of shrugged it off as, oh well, I'm not the captain. It's not my responsibility. Yep. Like he wouldn't be like that. But there'd be an element of, well, I'm sort of able to just be a player. That's who I am. I'm emotional. That's how it is. But I think he will have to learn to evolve into that role. And I think he'll understand as well. I think though he'll have to understand quickly because the coaches will be demanding it, and his teammates will be demanding it, and say, look, Nate, you and DJ are our captains, and we hold you up to that high regard, and you need to just tighten up that little discipline thing. Now, I will say this. So when I said we're losing that Brisbane game, or they never fought back in, and Brisbane maintained that buffer, in Wollongong, I know Nate picked up his third and fourth foul, but he actually came back into the game in the fourth and was recomposed. So he got that transition layup off some great play by the Taipans just to have that dish off. Nate got the layup. There was some other good plays. He was in there until the end of the game. So he showed within the space of two or 3 days that he can actually turn it around. And he made that conscious. I just feel like what I saw was that he made a conscious decision. All right, I had a bit of an ill-disciplined patch in the third with my 2 fouls. And then once he got inserted back into the game, he was switched on. And I think that's a big turning point, because the whole game changed, or the whole mindset improved within those few games, and they did everything except get the W in Wollongong. So the huddles were tighter. There was a look in their eye that they could feel that they were on a good thing, that they fought back, they were in the lead, and DJ was just instrumental in that game, but you could see the group was tighter, and I think that was a real positive for me to be able to witness that this Taipans team, if they can, when they get that first win, it'll all make sense and there'll be some momentum there. But I really saw a shift, sort of a defiance, and I think that was led by DJ. No, we're not going to stand for this. We're a lot better than this. Come on, guys, let's recompose. Let's do what we do. And let's make this a ball game, and I think they brought it. It was just unfortunate, obviously, to finish up, 1 point down. But the fan looking at the games will go, 0-3. I think I saw a great progression in a very short space of time. So, look, it's a tough road trip.
Yeah, well, touching on that, now that they are 0-3, no question they can take positives out of the way they played on Monday night, but to stay on the road, to go to Perth and spend 3 days in Perth leading up to the game, and then to have to play in Perth, the toughest place to play in the league. Can they build on the momentum from Monday into Friday night? How do they turn a competitive performance into a win against the defending champs who haven't lost a game yet?
Yeah, well, I don't know if the Wildcats have it completely together yet. Sure. Cotton's going off and Cotton's doing Cotton such things. Look, I think Scotty Machado will be a great matchup sort of on Cotton. Scotty just has him in strength for sure. Yep. Cotton's obviously very, very quick, very, he's able to just make space for himself. So, look, I think they just got to focus on themselves. Block out sort of those distractions. Now, it's easier said than done, but just about every year for the last sort of, since they're being in the new arena, I think we've clocked up a win. And last year, we clocked up a 1 point win, which was a huge part of the Wildcats sort of demise in that stretch that they had. The next game, I think Melbourne missed a layup to make it another loss for the Wildcats, but Wildcats ended up winning that game and then went on a streak, and then obviously went to the promised land. So they're bloody capable of just turning almost an impossible thing into something. So, they've got a good core and all that kind of stuff. But I think, it's early stages, and these teams don't quite have everything together like you think. The Taipans have every reason to go, look, we're going in there, we're focusing on ourselves. I don't care what anything outside of our group of 11 players, 3 coaches, 1 physio, 1 team manager, traveling, our big group. Nothing else matters right now. And, let's build on the momentum that we got. Let's build on that morsel of, synchronization that we found late in that game. We might have tapped into something that's us. So I'm hoping, I'm hoping that they feel energised a bit and not too deflated. I think Mike Kelly does probably a great job of being positive in that regard. You're gonna look for the best in those games, even though it was a loss. I think they're going to be on the front foot.
This episode of the Pikey Loughz Show proudly brought to you by Stattons Plumbing Company. Plumbers who care.
Now, last week we had a chat about the squad that the Taipans have put together this season. You gave a pretty good rundown on a lot of the players, Loughz. Is there a couple of guys, especially some of the bench guys, that you wanted to give a bit of time to this week?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we spoke about the new additions and they're all sort of starters, and I include Nate Jawai in that, in sort of 6 players there. I just wanted to talk about Mirko Djeric as a starter, a starting point. He comes off the bench, had a great game in Brisbane and again in Wollongong. Didn't give much airtime in that first episode, but I definitely want to touch on it today. So, if you've seen him play, his 3-point shot, the first thing you notice is that it's a ratchet. It's a catapult. So it's a different style. It's from the ready position, which I call sort of just in front of your face, where you would normally hold the ball before you go into your shooting motion. It's a ready position there, and then the ball will go up and back over your head to then come forward. So it's a 2-motion shot. Okay, now I've always been taught, I guess, from my ready position with the ball in front of my face to go straight up and forward in one kind of motion, and that's it. I've got the height advantage, I guess, from early on in my age and as a kid, I guess. So it was never really an issue. But maybe some of the young guys will learn a different technique based on what they needed to deal with at the time. So Mirko's not as a tall player, so maybe he's had to learn to counter that, being against taller players, to pull that ball back and up and over. It's sort of that Shane Hammer heel style.
Yeah, I was going to say it's very similar to Hammer. Yeah,
a Rodney Clark style. It goes back and then forwards. It's just kind of 2-motion thing. And dare I say, do I go back to Cal Bruton's style? Are you familiar with Cal?
Of course I know Cal,
Bruton's
but I
shot?
reckon Mirko's got him covered in terms of being a shooter.
Absolutely. But I'm just talking about that 2-motion style. But Mirko's shot's been money. So with the Crocs, he hit some shots late in the game,
especially against the Taipans. He loved those reptile rumbles.
Oh, absolutely. And so, I'm like, this guy is sort of, and he was younger back then too, so he's come off the bench. Yep. I'm like, man, this guy can play. It takes some cojones to shoot some of those late game situation shots, because you've got some superstars on your floor at the same time. So, it raised my eyebrows back then. And then obviously he went to Serbia 3 or 4 years, and then now he's back. But I really thought he was big in the Brisbane game. And also in the Wollongong game, but I think he's a very valuable asset off the bench, and very capable, and particularly when I spoke last week about, if you want to go through Nate as in a phase of a game where you're going to go, right, this next couple of minutes we're going through Nate while he's juiced and ready to go, you got to load up with shooters ready to spot up, because if the double team comes, you want weapons surrounding him. So Mirko's the guy that is going to be so handy on the floor, in particular when Nate's going one-on-one. Double team comes, you load up, and then there's a 4-on-3 on the outside somewhere. So you're going to, hopefully the ball finds it to Mirko, and he's able to launch and be happy, filling it up from long range. So look, he's a great addition to the Taipans. So certainly excited to see how his season unfolds, and I think he's had some real positive signs on the road. Often you see players play well at home and they're not so good on the road. Mirko's a tough competitor. I see him being quite indifferent to location. He'll sort of to a man he'll stand up in those hostile environments on the road. So yeah, really looking forward to how he sort of performs over in Perth, but also all the other road trips in there. So look for exciting things from Mirko. Look, I got the 3 Marlins players I was touching on last week that I wanted to give them the due diligence. So look, let's start with Fabijan Krslovic. he had a breakout game late in the season last year, had double-digit points. I don't want to say Sydney Kings, but I almost want to say it was against Sydney, but it could be wrong. But really showed signs of a real versatile, perhaps slightly undersized four-man, but this day and age, it's not so much height, it's sort of ability and what you can do. He's a strong body. He can shoot the three. He
can always play that Greg Hire role that he played for the Wildcats for so long. Very similar, probably built to him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Fab would be a bit taller. Fab would be a 6'8" type thing. I'd say Greg's more 6'6", 6'7", maybe more of a three-man. But with Fab, I think he brings just such a workhorse mentality to his whole disposition, his whole professionalism about it. He's got a real solid mind. Real mature. And he had a great season, obviously, at University of Montana, the Grizzlies, and his coach. It's funny, his coach, Trav DeCure, was old Loughzy's assistant at Old Dominion. So there's a funny connection there. And I nearly went to the University of Montana, actually. Okay. But Fab, obviously a great Marlins season this year. Got MVP for the club. Really excited to see Fab, lock down a contract which sets him rolling, and getting a full taste of the full pressure, I guess. When you're a DP, you kind of throw caution to the wind. Like, now that you're a paid, contracted player, it's time to produce. It's time to produce, because otherwise, this is, when you start, you have a family or whatever, which he doesn't. Sorry, he doesn't have kids or anything to feed, but this is the start of a career where grown men are trying to put food on the table for their families.
But I thought he had some good moments on the weekend too. He had that really good dunk on halftime on Friday night, and then even on Monday night, 6 rebounds he ended up with in 10 minutes. I thought he played some important minutes.
And it was a great read on that dunk, because he backdoor cut, the overplaying Wollongong, and they found him, and he just went upstairs quite easily, to be honest. Quite enviously watching him get up so easily. I'm like, that's great. But I think he's really worked hard on his athleticism as well, and he'll need every bit of it this year with the athleticism and the length of some of these players. Blocking shots above the rim, all that kind of stuff. So a great. Like you said, the stat stuffer side of it, it's going to be huge. If you're not sort of scoring, if you're not brought into the game to be a scorer, I mean, he understands his role, of course, but if you can contribute in big ways, boards, like loose ball plays, hustle plays, that kind of thing, it really is invaluable, because then you're not losing momentum when coaches got to get through players off the bench. You're not losing any of that sort of momentum in the game. So, really happy for Fab, and certainly look forward to what he can do this year. I think if I can go on to Anthony Fisher, this is an interesting story, because he's been slogging it out for so many years, and almost to no avail, and almost when you think the lights might have kind of gone down on a career, he's suddenly got the go-ahead, the green light for a contract, and just the number of hours that he's put in to be a valuable sort of training player, I guess, for so long. It's just rewarding for him to obviously be able to now be an official pro. He's got the full responsibility. He can concentrate 100% on hoops now. He doesn't sort of have to pad it with extra work and make ends meet. But he was a DP over at Perth, as you know, then came as a development player over in Cairns, and then once he went past that 24 years sort of age bracket, then you're not a DP anymore. You're a training player. You don't fall under that DP sort of status. So, look, I think he's rock solid in the QBL for so many years. I've seen players score 30 in the QBL or the CBL and or NBL 1 now, as it's called, and it's a different ballgame when you come to the NBL. The players are bigger, the players are stronger, like just totally different bodies that you come up against. So he's really going to have to make adjustments as quickly as possible, and otherwise you're not going to nail down consistent minutes. So and I think he he's a smart player. He's really consistent. So, in terms of setting up a team and, setting up the play and being the floor general, he's really reliable in that regard. I think where he'll have to make the adjustments is where if he attacks the hoop, how he releases his shot or the separation that he gets right at the last minute, he'll have to sort of just make that adjustment from a QBL level to an NBL level.
All of a sudden, at the level below, you get those shots off. At NBL level, they get thrown back in your face, don't they?
Yeah. Well, one thing all he does is left-hand floaters.
Yeah.
he'll know exactly what, he'll always have an easy layup, but he'd prefer to do a slightly more difficult left-hand floater from about 6 feet out, which is a money shot. It actually goes in more than probably his layups. So I reckon, it's probably trusting his instinct a bit on that as well. Like just finding that sweet spot where the shot blocker can't, send it by, if he goes all the way to the rim, the shot blocker is probably going to send it. If he can just find that sweet spot where he can elevate a bit and just get that little left-hand floater going off the glass, then he just chips away a couple of points a game. But his big thing will be his consistency in setting up the team and just being a valuable sub for obviously Jared Kenny's and Scotty Machado's to have a breather. So, those two guys have certainly had some big impacts in the QBL level.
I think it's great to show that at the Marlins level, there's now a clear pathway there where if guys are willing to put in the work, they're willing to improve their games, there's a real chance that you can become an NBL player. I don't know if that was the case a few years ago. I think these two guys, like you talked about, it's a great example for now everybody that's playing basketball in the area that if you just knuckle down, there's a real chance you could end up playing for the Taipans. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think in 99, obviously when the Taipans started, there was Marlins going into Taipan sort of, NBL caliber sort of range. Maybe it's dipped or it's had its peaks and valleys, but obviously with Jamie O'Loughlin, I know for sure, Coach O'Loughlin, assistant coach of the Taipans, as everyone knows, he's obviously going to run a tight ship and a professional outfit. So, if you're in the Marlins squad, you're going to be basically doing a pseudo Taipans type training sort of regime, maybe not as much frequency, but he expects or he demands professionalism on all accounts. So you're right, you're absolutely right. There is a pathway that is visible for players if they let's say they come into the Marlins and they're going to get a taste of what's expected at the NBL level, So you're right, and it's exciting. Now there's one more name obviously I want to talk about. Obviously George Blabowski, the big Glabowski. Is that what it was? So George Blagojevic from Geelong. Got ties with Jamie O'Loughlin from Melbourne sort of days and that kind of thing. Was brought up to the Marlins for QBL just to see where he's at, coming back out of college and all that kind of stuff. A tall three-man, just very capable and cagey.
Almost a Clint Steindl build, isn't he?
Sorry?
Almost a Clint Steindl type of build.
Yeah, absolutely. A taller three than some of your Blanchfields, I think. Maybe he's about the same as a Todd Blanchfield type size and Steindl. Capable finisher, left and right hand, just a good sort of nose for the ball, a good sort of IQ, and it's pretty quiet and unassuming, I guess, in terms of what he's like off the floor. But he just kind of gets the job done. I just noticed stat stuffer for in those preseason games. Just comes up with rebounds when he needs to. But obviously he's a newbie for NBL sort of status, I guess. So he's trying to feel his way this year. He's trying to figure it out very quickly. But I guess there's a huge upside to his game, albeit a little bit raw at this stage, just because he's quite young in terms of joining the squad and his ascendancy's been pretty quick. Then just 1 year of QBL coming out of college, and then now he's in. So yeah, he'll like Fab. Anthony or Fab, Fish, and George, I think just got to make the adjustments quickly, and they will adjust. That they will evolve as players, and they'll learn to play the game at the level that is quite an athletic league now. So looking forward to how those three progress. Loving the addition of Mirko Djeric, and just looking forward to obviously how they perform as the season goes on.
Very quickly, before we hear from Mike Kelly and we move into having a look at this Perth game in a bit more detail, the three games over the weekend that didn't involve the Taipans. Friday night, the Wildcats beat the Hawks 27 points in Perth. That seems to be a pretty regular occurrence. I think, like we said last week, it's 32 of the last 33 now for the Wildcats at home to the Hawks. Sydney Kings,
Did I say 16? I said 18. I said 18, didn't I? Or 16 point win to the
I think you said somewhere close to 20. So you were within the range. Sydney Kings beat the Adelaide 36ers 102-80. Tough start for the Sixers to the season coming back from Utah. And then Southeast Melbourne Phoenix, they stay undefeated. They had a 113-93 win over the Brisbane Bullets. What stood out to you from those games, Loughz?
Well, obviously, Phoenix win that away game in Melbourne versus United in round one, and then win a home game in Melbourne against the Bullets, coming off that doubleheader after beating Taipans. So I guess there's probably no surprise with the Wildcats defeating Wollongong. The jet lag coming into play for the 36ers, I knew it was going to be a tough night. They obviously don't want to have any excuses, and Joey Wright, saying, don't accept it. Don't accept any excuse. We got to be better, and they know they will have to very quickly sort of make amends. It's sort of, that's an interesting one with Jerome Randall coming back in almost at the last minute. Now let me ask you this, Pikey. If you're sitting in the boardroom going, all right, how's this season going to go? Well, and this is Coach Joey Wright saying, all right, board, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring in someone because we're going to hold out on Jerome Randall. It's all part of the plan here. Don't worry. Stay with me here, boys. So we're going to have him come in, have our normal selections come in, and then the last week before the season starts, we're going to have Jerome Randall come back in. They're like, sweet, yep, let's all sign off on it. I don't know if it went down like that, Pikey. It might have gone down a bit more like this. It's like, oh, hang on a minute. We lost the Taipans in the preseason NBL Blitz. We're looking a bit shaky here. We got 1 week before the NBL. Quick, get Jerome Randall back. But didn't you fight, Coach? I thought you guys had a big falling out. I thought you fought right at the end of that when you guys departed. Yeah, I don't care about that. Just get him back in. Do whatever we got to do to get Jerome Randall. Oh, thank goodness we got him. Like, does that seem a bit more maybe
I reckon
what's
the latter
happened? Or?
Probably is more likely. I certainly don't think it was a plan when they signed poor old Deshaun Taylor to get him here for a pre-season and then take him to Utah and then tell him that he's not welcome back on the plane back to Adelaide. So I feel like it was a last-minute decision when they probably realised that maybe they needed to be a more dynamic team. Maybe they realised that Deshaun Taylor might have been a handy player, but he wasn't going to be a guy that could put a team on his back like we know Jerome can. But at the same time, we saw some limitations to Randall's game late last season and into the playoffs that was shown up by Melbourne United in that playoff series, which is why I think the Kings were so keen to get Casper Ware because they saw him as an upgrade on Jerome. So going back to Adelaide's fascinating for him. It hasn't worked so far. But there's no more motivated player in the league than him. He's pretty strongly driven. It'll be fascinating to see how he responds now this week. They've got a couple of games and they need to start to click, or else the pressure falls right back onto his shoulders more than anybody's.
Yeah, absolutely.
This episode of the Pikey Loughz Show proudly brought to you by Stattons Plumbing Company. Plumbers who care.
Now, I had the privilege of catching up with Mike Kelly, Taipans head coach. It was only fitting that I spent most of the time talking about you and getting his thoughts on you. So let's have a listen to it now, and then we'll see what you had to think afterwards. Mike, thanks for joining us on Talking Taipans. You would have heard about it. You would have heard about Alex Loughton doing a podcast. I guess the fact
how could I not hear about it?
The fact that I'm part of it is probably irrelevant because, let's be honest, the point of it is to give Loughzy a platform to talk, and he loves to do that. First of all, what's it like? What's it been like the last 6 months not having Alex around the club?
Oh, it's been like a breath of fresh air. No. Hey, we miss him, and I've seen him around. He's still around the club, and I've seen him down at CBI with his kids, and still involved with basketball. So it's been really good. He's just so much involved with the community, and I value his friendship and also his input. So when we do talk, it's great to hear from him and his encouragement, and also kind of his thoughts on the game.
When you reflect back on late last season, when you knew he was retiring, he got that last home game, he made that big basket at the end of the game, he got the fist pump out, and you were able to win the game. As a coach, how happy are you when you're able to give somebody a fairy tale finish? Because it doesn't happen very often in sport.
Yeah, it's fantastic when something like that happens. It's a player's game, so it's fun when they can kind of control how things finish for them. And Alex did that, so that was really cool to see that at home, and then kind of had the emotional speech afterwards and the mic drop. So memorable.
Now you got new co-captains this year, obviously with Nate and DJ. Do you feel like you've got the natural inbuilt leadership to cover what I guess Alex does leave behind?
It's funny. I don't think Nate or DJ are what you would call typical captains. Like, Nate's so fiery and can be up and down with his emotions, and then DJ's probably a little more quiet. So it's been interesting since there's been a little bit of a vacuum with Alex leaving, and Waxy was his vice captain last year. Now, it was naturally filled by those guys because they kind of lead by example a lot of the time, and then Jared Kinney and Scott Machado are kind of those, and even Anthony Fisher, as point guards, they come in and do some leadership things, just the way they carry themselves and the way they work every day. So we've kind of filled that void by committee. But DJ and Nate have been amazing at how they've stepped up and said, we want this to be special. We want to kind of impact the team more than we did last year and have a voice, and the other guys responded.
I'm sure Loughz will catch up with you in person at times throughout this podcast, so I'll let him expand a little bit further with you at times. But we're talking back to the Orange Army, obviously back home, getting ready for Friday night's game. What can you tell them? What should they look forward to on Friday night, and how desperate and confident are you of a really strong performance?
Yeah, it's I think the same thing that we tell our guys, is stay with it and stay with the fundamentals. We're up and down right now. Guys are kind of getting to know each other's games and where they fit in. And but the great thing is we've got a whole crew again this Friday against Perth, so it's a big one for us. And I think the guys have played with desperation in all the games, but it hasn't come together for 40 minutes. So we're just continuing to try to build on every performance and not have lapses like we did the other night against Illawarra, and give ourselves a chance to show, let the talent really come out. And because I know the talent's there, and we just have to let it out for 40 minutes.
Thanks for joining us.
Appreciate it.
Thanks to Mike Kelly for that. I really appreciate him taking the time to catch up with me. Now, Loughz, he talked very highly of your leadership. He talked highly of still enjoying seeing you around the club, and he's also hopeful of a good performance from the Taipans on Friday night. What were your quick thoughts?
Yeah, look, I think he's highlighting that the leadership role with Nate and DJ, they're going to grow into those positions, and I think to just think they naturally have all the answers straight away is probably is never going to be the case. They're going to learn sort of have mistakes, I guess. They've certainly got to display as much discipline as they can muster up, especially in those late stretches of the game, to really help the boys succeed down the stretch. So Mike's going to be really really working with him. The team psych Jody Maguire's going to be working with those two. But yeah, he's obviously it's an open sort of a field or a bit of a vortex maybe for those two players to now come through that. They're going to be forced into responsible sort of a leadership roles. So I'm looking forward to how they evolve and how they mature in those roles. And it's certainly exciting to see the developments between that Brisbane and Wollongong game, as we mentioned before. So yeah, really looking forward to how it pans out for them in the season. Perth game on Friday night. How do you see the end result sort of pulling out here, Pikey?
Yeah, it's tough. I want to talk to you about it. You've done this trip to Perth numerous occasions, and the thing about it is that it's twofold. It's the toughest place to come to win in the league, but I would also think as a player, when you win in Perth, it's the wins that almost you remember the most when you finish your career. So can you talk about what makes it so tough, but also how good of a feeling it is when you do manage to win in Perth?
First of all, I really enjoy the entertainment side of things. They really go all out and over the top, which is great. It's sort of college sort of feel. So there's this kind of different, the build up to the game just takes so long because of all this fanfare they got to get through before the game starts. So in some ways, the first time player in that environment will go. You kind of try and build up your energy gradually for this, for the warm up for the game, and you kind of get thrown out of whack a bit because all of a sudden it's taken 45 minutes to an hour in your once you sort of start the layup line kind of thing to when you're jumping, going the jump ball. So it's just this kind of like. I don't know when to time my sort of energy spurt here to go, all right, I'm gearing up to go. So sometimes, the different scenario of all that sort of stuff can kind of throw the players out a bit. I guess the crowd is obviously pretty hostile and, I'm from Perth. You're a Perth guy as well. Like looking at the fans now in Perth, they always seem a bit ratty, a bit rednecky kind of thing. Like you see them on the forums, they just go off and just like, I don't know, mate. You guys are pretty one-sided in your views here. Like, I mean, maybe we're the same. I don't know. In Queensland, we sort of, have our one-sided views, but the fans can get a bit ratty.
I think there's no question they're a different breed.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, there's a bit of that, but on the flip side, it's not impossible to win, and we've had quite a few wins there. I want to say at least sort of in the 5 or 6 years since they went to 7 years they went to the arena. I think I've probably got sort of 5 wins there out of your sort of 12 games.
Yeah, finish off a semi-final series with a win there.
Yeah, including a semi-final. So there's no greater feeling than 13,000 fans going, and almost walking out the door. Or probably a lot of them actually. They stand up and then the seats go, like the seats click back, and then you're like, that's the best sound in the world. New Zealand's got the same setup. I love it. So in the stadium, the fans leave early, the last minute of the game, and all the seats go whack, 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 and you're like, oh, hey boys, get in here. What is it, Loughz? You hear that sound? It was like, what is it? That's the sound of victory right there. So, if you get a win in Perth is there's no greater feeling really. And you feel like when you get a win on the road, you just sort of feel like you own the town. You walk around, you're a couple of feet tall. You're like, we really, really achieved something. So, but no greater feeling than there would be no greater feeling than to get a win over the champions of last year. And, I think, like I said, I think they're going to be real focused on themselves. They've got a chance. They've got a sniff. Whilst the Wildcats won't be fully in sync with everything. They've obviously Cotton's in sync with himself and his own play because he's pretty good. But if they can limit him, that's the linchpin right there. Like it's open slather if they can sort of reduce him down or really really make it uncomfortable for him. And I think Scotty Machado might have the maturity and presence of mind to kind of hone in on that. I think they could ruffle Cotton's feathers and then everyone else will sort of fold like cheap suits. So. I mean, obviously Damien Martin's a big, he'll steady the ship defensively and all that. But, I think there's just a chance early on in season to sort of surprise them. And I think the Taipans got every bit of a sniff. Yeah,
I think you mentioned Damien Martin. He can only guard one of Scotty Machado or DJ Newbill. He can't guard both of them. I think whoever whoever Bryce Cotton ends up guarding, it's a real chance for them to take over this game. Obviously, Bryce is fantastic offensively, but you almost concede that whoever Damien Martin goes to, you can almost leave him out for a little bit and let the other guy take over. So whether it's DJ or Scotty Machado, I reckon it's a real chance for them to take over the game. And I think DJ he loves that moment, as we saw on Monday night. He has a chance to really come in and take over this game. But I reckon two other guys who we talked about earlier in the show, built for this sort of occasion. Majuk Deng, he's shown over his short career in Adelaide that he loves the big moment. He had a fantastic grand final series 2 years ago against Melbourne United. I think he would love the chance to go to Perth and to quieten that crowd like you talked about before. And the guy you talked about before as well, Mirko Djeric, he loves this moment too. He's built to come into a 13,000 seat stadium and knock down three or five triples like he does, and
not be phased at all. Yeah, absolutely. And that passage of play in Wollongong that just went on Monday night. So we sort of spoke about DJ, how impressive he was. Well, there's that patch of play. They really shared the ball well. It went through the post and a little drop off past the Deng. He just it was a quick jump. It was a real sort of like off the 2 foot whap, like 2 foot dunk off the 2 foot bounce. It was impressive, and I think no one enjoyed it more than Majuk Deng himself.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he filled the points sheet, the stat sheet up with points. So I think he's coming off a high confidence game. I think even though he won't be as happy with the weekend individually, I think he did some really good things, particularly energy wise. Just a couple buckets late that were huge. He might have been on that receiving end, I think, when Scotty did that spin move. So there was just that passage of. I just enjoyed that passage of play, how they were moving the ball and finding ways to win. There could have been a foul call to Wollongong. The refs put the whistle away, and they still finished buckets. And I think that's that kind of mindset I want to see. Like, resilient, like, all right, there was no foul, but we still got that play executed, there's no foul, but we're still able to get what we want, and we weren't pushed out of our position. I think that's the big thing. And DJ and Nate's mindset has got to be, come on boys, like, own your spots on the floor, get the job done, and just be solid, like, just finish this thing off right, and discipline down the stretch, and then we're in a position to win the game or close it out and put it beyond contention. So look, I'm looking for them to obviously build on just the morsels or the glimpses of real positive play from that Wollongong game.
The big question coming to this game now, Loughz, and I'll put you on the spot, for all the positives that we saw on Monday night, and for all the reasons that the Taipans deserve to be feeling pretty confident going into Friday night, if they do fall to 0-4 afterwards, is there a way back this season?
Absolutely. It starts with it'll be the home game the week after. First of all, I'm going Taipans by 3.
Okay.
By 3 points. You heard it from Loughz first in the Pikey Loughz Show. So Taipans by 3 on Friday night. The week after, I'm looking for progress. I'm not looking for panic stations at all, and it won't be panic stations. They've only had one home game, 3 away. Remember, I spoke about you're looking for 12 wins out of the 14 at home. They're not in any kind of panic stages yet. They desperately need a win just to get the juices flowing, just to get that feeling like, all right, yep, this is how it is. Now we can get some momentum from here.
The next one's even away to Adelaide as well, before the home game against Melbourne.
So, yeah, it's a tough stretch. But, I mean, that Adelaide game, I think they're probably the least team that has it all together. Regardless of what happens in Perth, they've just got to be going in the right direction. Whatever happens in Perth, I just want to see them build and stay tight and stay together, and just keep building on what's sort of working, and not just drop a bundle, not have ill-disciplined plays. And the biggest thing is when those momentum swings come, you got to limit the duration of the points getting poured on in that momentum swing. You just got to cut it off. Just have that. You got to have everyone go, boys, like we've had actually a word that we've used before. It can be different every year, whatever. But there's a word like not like spumoni, which is it's the danger word. But if a team puts on a couple of points quick, it was like lock in, boys, like lock in. So lock in was automatically the identifier to go right. Next one's got to be stopped at all costs. Now, I mean, this is coming off our last season, which wasn't a great season, but I think the stat was something like 11 games were within 3 or 4 points. We just couldn't close out, but that's the mindset. In my 9 years here, there's been that kind of one-word identifier, sort of lock in, and it's like to a man, your eyeball, your teammate, like, mate, this play where everyone's got to be on point, because this is already 2 buckets now. We've got to stop this third at all cost. So yeah, there's different things like that, and I see that the team psych Jodie Maguire's on the road trip for that Brisbane and Wollongong game. She would have been a big help for mindset for Nate and the team, and just establishing rapport there as well. So there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of positives from my end. There's not much. There's no result at the moment, but they're certainly working towards sort of the right thing. I can see the progression happen. I obviously want them to be able to just have a big exhale after a big 3-point win in Perth.
Big hello to Jodie as well. She's done some fantastic work over the years at the Taipans, and I'd love for you to try to catch up with her at some point this season for the Pikey Loughz Show, if you can, Loughz. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, she'll be on the Pikey Loughz Show, I guarantee.
Fantastic. Very quickly, one-word answers again, Loughz, about the other game, non-Taipans games for this round. You did pretty well last weekend. Sydney, New Zealand Breakers Friday night, New Zealand's first game of the season, coming back from their NBA games.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Sydney's got a bit of momentum behind them. I'm going to go Sydney by 6. Interesting, assistant coach resigned on the way back from that.
Fascinating.
US.
Fascinating. Apparently he'd already sold up his home and he'd already decided to move before the NBA trip, but he still went on the trip.
Already selling up your home, that would indicate sort of a dislike for the environment well before going to the US.
Obviously, you knew that you were going to be quitting on the way home as well. You would think that he knew he would be handing in his resignation on the way home too.
Yes. Did you get your boarding pass? No, I've got my resignation here. Sorry, what was that? You've already got that? And that's interesting. But yeah, I think there's more to that story there.
And also Paulie Hanari leaving Melbourne United and also stepping down as Tall Blacks coach to take up a job over in Japan following the footsteps of Sean Dennis.
It's just it's amazing what how quick these changes are. I mean, they obviously involve, they've got families and things, and it's a big move. You don't just sort of pick up and go overnight. You obviously think about it for quite some time, or have an offer on the table for quite some time, or have a disliking of the environment for quite some time. And you've already, by the time you've made the what seems like a rash call, you're already a foot in the other door. So, interesting development. So I just feel there must be some unrest in New Zealand team for that to occur. I mean, maybe it was just a clash with the coach's staff, and the players will pull it together.
That was a hell of a one-word answer.
That kind of thing. Sorry, we're doing the one word. Sorry.
Next up on Saturday, Adelaide 36 is their first home game, and they're playing at the Adelaide Entertainment Centre up against the Brisbane Bullets.
It's a bit interesting one.
Nathan Sobey going back to Adelaide.
Yeah. I mean, he'll have a point to prove. I think Adelaide are gonna actually get it done based on pure adrenaline and. Is this one word answer? Sorry,
no,
this is still one word answer. Is it? I'm thinking Joey Wright's going to have a spray and just be absolutely livid should the scoreline ever get in an unfavourable position. So I think off the bat of just some pure adrenaline and fire, that will probably will the 36ers over the line in their brand new
potentially 10,000 people they're hoping for.
That's great. I mean, that's great for the league to have teams loading up on upgrades when they can, and just deliver for the fans. I think the fans win. The basketball wins.
Also on Saturday, Southeast Melbourne Phoenix undefeated. They've now got an import added in as well to replace Ty Wesley in the short term. They're up against the Illawarra Hawks.
What a luxury to have that little budget
it is nice.
for an extra fill in for Ty. I think South East Melbourne Magic Phoenix will get the job done and continue their win streak. I do think Wollongong will get a lot of momentum or confidence out of that 1 point win. But yeah, I think Phoenix will get the job done.
And Sunday the break
they'll get it done by 6. Yeah.
Then Sunday the Breakers and the Kings do it all over again, but over in Auckland.
This might be one where the New Zealand are able to pinch one here. Sydney might even kind of see who's ailing a bit, maybe rest a few guys in certain stretches or whatever. But I think New Zealand might pinch this one by 3 points.
Grand final rematch also on Sunday. Melbourne United coming back from their 2 NBA games. They played the LA Clippers and the Sacramento Kings, and then straight into a home game against the Perth Wildcats on Sunday.
Perth Wildcats will get up there by 10.
The last game of the round, another fascinating one. Illawarra Hawks, they seem to have a mortgage on that Monday night time slot. They're up against the Adelaide 36ers, another old captain going back home. Kevin White back to visit his old home now. The Adelaide captain going back to Wollongong.
That'll be an overtime game. They'll go to overtime. The score will be 90 at overtime, and I think Wollongong are going to get this one done by 4 points in overtime.
There we go. You heard it from Loughz, the man himself. Before I get your final thoughts, Loughz, got some really good feedback from our first show. I think we might be onto something. Thanks to everybody on social media, especially that liked us or followed us or retweeted us or favorited us or whatever you did. Please do it as much as you can, because we need all the support that we can get. We want to get this show out there. We want as many people to know about it as we can. So please just do whatever you can to help get the Pikey and Loughz Show out there. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And obviously, if you're listening to this podcast, you've found us wherever you listen to your podcast, but we've tried to make it available as many places as we can, from iTunes to Spotify to YouTube to everywhere you will look. So make sure you check us out and to pass on the word about the show as well, because we want as many of the Orange Army to be behind us as we can. So I think we did it. I think we got through another show pretty well, Loughz, and. Once again,
absolutely. Look, I was just going to say on that point. Sorry, the people were saying, look, love to break down a few referees' calls, and throughout the podcast series. I think, just focusing on sort of the team for today, but there's certainly a chance to break down some of those calls in the future episodes. Loving your feedback on that, and also the sponsorship as well is great for the show. If we can, if we get a few people on board that sort of help sort of drive. Our time that we could put in and give you guys, some good insights, and you're enjoying that, then we'd love to have, obviously, your help on board. If you're a business or local business in Cairns that would like to get your name on the podcast as well, certainly appreciate that as well. So hit us up on any of the socials. But yeah, over to you, Pikey.
Now, Loughz, we have to finish the show with your final thoughts. What have you got for us heading into this weekend?
Mate, I've seen some great progression in the mindset from the Taipans, from that Brisbane game to the Wollongong game. This is not panic stations now, Pikey. This is a time to lock in and really look at how the boys respond. I saw great things down the stretch in that fourth quarter. Really saw life and culture evolve in the faces of the boys as they were hanging on in Wollongong, only to fall short. But look, it's right there for the boys to lock in and have a real positive result in Perth and beyond. So keep the faith, keep strong, and keep supporting the boys.
This episode of the Pikey and Loughz Show proudly brought to you by Stattons Plumbing Company. Plumbers who care.